Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, and we're specifically going to talk about the double-sided spinning mirror of Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. So let's jump right into this. All right, so I have an incredibly unique view of Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition as a game. I have an incredibly unique view, and basically I believe that Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition is not a game. I believe it's a life path. Right? Rather than me say that again, all the things I think on that, check out the doobly-doo. If you don't know what I mean by that, just check out the doobly-doo below, and you'll see under terms to know, you'll see explanations of those. Okay, let me just move forward. All right. So basically, let's think about Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition as a double-sided spinning mirror, and I want to talk about what the mirror reflects and how it impacts us and how Dungeons & Dragons, in fact, how Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition impacts us as people, as IRL people, during the game and after the game, okay? All right, so what is Dungeons & Dragons, right? Well, first of all, it's a huge question, and I think that it's going to take 100 years to fully answer that question. Started in 1974. I think in 2074, when our Earth is vibrant and alive and wonderful, that we will have fully answered that question, right? And right now, I could promise you, if you go 1 centimeter to the right or 1 centimeter to the left of me as a D&D commentator and hit any of the other D&D commentators, they all have the same answer. They all have the answer that it's a game. So basically, so what I want to encourage you to do is don't stop thinking, okay? Don't stop thinking. I know it's easy. I know it's comfortable, but don't stop thinking. It's really important, okay? So today I want you to think about Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition as a full-length, double-sided spinning mirror, okay? And this will help you to understand what Dungeons & Dragons is. I believe I have a unique understanding of Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, right? And I don't want it to be unique. I want others to start to pick this up. I'm trying to convince people. I'm trying to have people pull the blinders off their eyes, okay? All right, so let's jump into this. How do we get here? How do I explain what this is, okay? All right, so let's think about this Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition as a spinning, full-length, double-sided mirror, okay? All right, so Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition is a spinning, full-length, double-sided mirror. It's 6 feet tall. It floats 1 centimeter above the ground, and it's an oval, okay? And it's a brilliant, perfect mirror. And on one side, it reflects what's in the game, okay? What's in air quotes game. So my game is on Sunday nights. We start at 6 p.m. and we end at 10 p.m. We have 2 DMs, 2 Dungeon Masters who run. One runs in the 6 to 8 p.m. slot and one runs in the 8 to 10 p.m. slot. And they both run in the same world, and they're picking up the story. You know, they pick up the story of the DM before them. It's all in the same world. Everybody in our game is a player and a Dungeon Master. That's my game, right? Your game is your Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition is a little bit different because on page 4 of the Dungeon Master Guide, it says the rules aren't in charge, you're in charge, okay? All right, so here we go. So basically, on Sunday night at 6 p.m., the mirror is in front of us, okay? Us as players, right? And the Dungeon Master. And when we look into the mirror, we see the story we're creating, right? And what it reflects back to us is this beautiful story, right? Our story right now, I have a player character called Thrad. He's a Leonin druid soldier. My friend Mike plays an Aarakocra monk, right? My male friend Bill plays a female half-orc paladin, right? Who's dedicated to Malil, right? And what we see when we look in the mirror, right, is we see this beautiful world that we've created together, right? And we see adventure and we see combat, right? And when we see that combat in the game, it's safe, right? It's brutal, right? You know, Dagara, the half, you know. Oh, and by the way, one of the other players, Julian, he plays a shadow sorcerer elf, half-elf shadow sorcerer from a noble family, right? And so, like, when we're in combat, that combat is very real and visceral, right? Dagara has cut foes in half with her greatsword, right? And we've seen Julian's character, Jareth, right, just banish these creatures away, and completely off of the realm we're on. Just incredible power, right? And our Aarakocra monk, we've seen him spiral above and come crashing down in a thunder of blows, It's just so visceral and real, right? And the reality is, all of us around the table make sure each week that we are never in combat, right? Like, when we get angry, we're like, hey, I can't kick that person in the head. I'm a regular person, right? This is a world of peace, right? We are Americans. Every single one of us is an American citizen. We want a peaceful world, right? But in this Dungeons and Dragons world, the combats are frequent and they're exciting, right? And so the game is reflecting this back, right? But when we're fighting, we're choosing what we fight for, right? We fight for good. Every single one of our player characters are heroes. There's no villains at the table, right? And we're champions, right? Now, Sunday night ends, okay? And Sunday night ends, but the mirror continues to spin, right? And now, on Monday through Saturday, we see the other side of the mirror, okay? And really, the game is over, but Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition's impact on our life is not even remotely over, right? This is where the real impact, the real importance of what happened on Sunday night actually happens, right? So now it's Monday, okay? And I go back to work. I have dinner the next night. I meet with friends at Starbucks on a weekday night, right? But there's this echo, right? And I'm thinking, on Sunday night at 6 p.m., I was a champion. I was a hero. I fought for what was right, right? I explored the world. I interacted with the people in that world, right? And that Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition session says to me, Scott, are you fighting for what's right now in your IRL? Are you a champion right now in your IRL? Are you choosing causes to ally with? Are you fighting for them? Not in a bloody way like on Sunday night, but in a non-bloody way, with your time, with your resources, right? Are you championing the weak? Are you helping those who are downtrodden, right? Are you a folk hero here, right? It's important, right? Are you exploring your world? Are you getting off your butt and walking up the street, right, and hitting a Pokemon spinner? And then when you're hitting this Pokemon spinner, right, are you talking to your neighbor and realizing their dog passed this week, right? And interacting with them and saying, oh, hey, Sally, my neighbor, I'm so sorry your dog passed. This is a wonderful new Shih Tzu, right? But I really remember your Bichon. Are you interacting, right? And here's the thing. The mirror never stops spinning. D&D is always impacting us. It's always transforming us. It's always changing us. Saying, are you combating? Are you exploring? Are you interacting? Are you a champion? Are you a player character? Do you matter in this world, right? And the game never, ever lets up, impacting us and changing us and transforming us. Ever. The only thing that changes is if it is reflecting our IRL life and saying, Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition is now showing you the other side of the mirror, and it's asking you the questions. Are you as awesome in your regular life as you are in the game, right? Now this is incredible, right? Because I'm saying that Dungeons & Dragons is mixed up, is there at the kitchen table when we're playing, but is also there when the game, air quotes, is over. And its impact then is more powerful than its impact when we're playing. Okay? Now, what the heck? Didn't we learn in the 80s that you can't mix IRL and fantasy? No, that was not the lesson. Okay? Here's the facts about Dungeons & Dragons. No spells are real in Dungeons & Dragons. If you want to learn to create the light spell, you will not find anything in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition that will allow you to cast a spell. That's not real, right? The light spell is there, okay, in the game, right? But we can't cast that as real magic in the real world. We know that now, right? The other thing is, we know that that basically we need to be able to distinguish between our real world and our fantasy world. But now we know that it's not so that we can make sure that we're safe. No one's going into steam tunnels today because of Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, right? That's not happening. It's not a danger. And the reason why is our world, the world we live in right now in 2021, is saying, oh, we can absolutely mix IRL and fantasy safely. You know how we do that? Because cosplay has been done for 20 years, right? And people are taking their IRL bodies and creating fantasy visions, right? Fantasy identities, fantasy people in the IRL world. And this has been done for 2 decades safely and to the benefit of many, many people. And that's just one example of where, the mixture of IRL fantasy in the 1980s was fear. Now, the mixture of IRL and fantasy today is hope. And we can have hope, right? You want to see hope, right? You want to see where IRL and fantasy mix? Satine Phoenix has a video where she goes to the house of Gary Gygax, right? She's pulled up in an Uber, right? Like or a Lyft, just like a car service, right? Before she even steps out of the car, tears just flow from her face, right? It's the IRL and the fantasy mixed. Dungeons and Dragons, she says it literally in that video. Dungeons and Dragons has transformed her life, right? Dungeons and Dragons 1E transformed lives decades ago. Dungeons and Dragons 2E transformed lives decades ago. Dungeons and Dragons 3E transformed lives decades ago. Dungeons and Dragons 4E transformed lives, a decade ago, right? But today, Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition is still transforming lives. That's still real and still powerful and still very much matters. The spinning mirror of Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, it never stops. It always is showing us, when we look into the mirror, we see when the game is on and we see when the game is off. And I'm here to tell you that what Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition is telling you and showing you and calling you to when the game is done is far more powerful than what it's doing when the game is on. That's my opinion. What do you think? Do you see it? Do you see the revolving mirror, right? Do you see the revolving mirror? I'm really curious. Let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing. Have a wonderful millennium.